I think this is really the most important subject there is. And I think it's at the basis of all the spiritual traditions. I think it's at the basis of alchemy, especially because they kept telling you things you didn't want to hear. And we got to, because I think this is really the most important subject there is. And I think it's at the basis of all the spiritual traditions.
energetically with all living beings. So the shape of everything matters, and any two things with a similar shape can exchange energy and information. Now that's the idea that we have today in electromagnetic theory. We have to have a specifically shaped antenna to pick up a specific electromagnetic signal. If it doesn't have the right shape, it can't pick up the signal. But that's true energetically with all living beings. So the shape of everything matters, and any two things with a similar shape. But that's true energetically with all living beings. So the shape of everything matters, and any two things with a similar shape can exchange energy and information. Now that's the idea that we have today in electromagnetic theory. We have to have a specifically shaped.
The Allambie site's ancestral kangaroo engraving site located at Allambie Heights in northern Sydney, New South Wales. The name Allambie, meaning peaceful place, was a tool to help the ancestors have a direct connection to the spiritual realm and teaching the power of turning inward. This is the kangaroo and snake ancestral engraving, which are associated with altered states of consciousness, and a sacred space used for training their sensitivity.
In the 1970s, it was shown that looking at a series of psychoactive, psychedelic drugs, actually, hallucinogenic drugs, that their potency was related to their ability to donate electron resonance energy from the drug to the receptor. So the potency of the psychedelic is related to its ability to donate electron resonance energy, quantum electron energy to the receptor, to the system. And that seems to push the person into an altered state. And in the
There are plenty of different ways that you can alter your perception. But right now, we're going to change the way you see the world with this quick brain game. Focus on the letters in the center of this image, starting in 3, 2, 1. Ready? Look away in 3, 2, 1. Check out your hands or whatever's around you. Do things look a little wavy? Don't worry, the effect should wear off in a few seconds. While you were focused on the letters that spelled out this ancient wisdom from Plutarch, an ancient Greek philosopher, your eyes and your brain work together to create a motion after effect illusion. Staring at the constantly moving pattern tires out the visual neurons detecting motion over time. When you stop looking at the image, your brain takes a few seconds to readjust, which makes it look like things are moving, even when they aren't.
Does not suggest what the agency was that was introducing the altered state of consciousness, and we know that there are many ways to do that. It could have been done through dancing. It still is, but does not suggest what the agency was that was introducing the altered state of consciousness, and we know that there are many ways to do that. It could have been done through dancing. It still is, but does not suggest what the agency was that was introducing the altered state of consciousness, and we know that does not suggest.
The kangaroo and snake engraving are showing you the neurophysiology of entoptic imagery, and the visual experience make their journeys possible. The entoptic imagery experience in the first stage is interpreted by the ancestors as they moved deeper into an altered state. At the Allambie Heights ancestral engraving site, there are cultural principles that transform basic entoptic elements experienced under certain conditions into more elaborate and complex ones. The terms of polyopsia and integration. The first makes reference to the repetition and reduplication of entoptic patterns, and the second one corresponds with the transformation of simple motifs into more complex geometric visions, as seen within the kangaroo and snake's internal design. Researchers developed a neuropsychological model to classify the geometric forms of entoptic phenomena into 6 types: dots, filigrees, grid, zigzag lines, catenary curves and lines. Here at this ancestral engraving site in Allambie, the peaceful place, the ancestors are describing the progressive stages of the visual trance experience, starting with the abstract entoptic forms that gradually transformed into iconic images corresponding with everyday or mythic reality of the ancestors. The stories are the blueprint, the sites are the experiment, the body is the conclusion. The stories are the make up the ancestors, the sites are the experiment, practices, the body is the conclusions. The stories are the blueprint, the sites are the experiments, the body.
We consider normal. It's a very touchy subject to discuss. It really is. That open an understanding and reality beyond what we consider normal. It's a very touchy subject to discuss. It really is. That open an understanding and
resonant properties, and in this case has quite a high percentage of quartz crystal, about 20% quartz crystal, and that makes it highly resonant. And as you know, all crystals have resonant properties, and in this case has quite a high percentage of quartz crystal, about 20% quartz crystal is the science of visible sound. And while I had used a spectrum analyzer in the first set of experiments, this is kind of a graphic view of sound, you could say, graphically seeing sound. These of experiments, which was conducted the next year, were all based on cymatics, because cymatics is the science of visible sound. And while I had used a spectrum analyzer in the first
similar to the process and like a natural piezoelectric system to help generate and intensify the energy within this sacred space to further assist in the spiritual practices of journeying into the spiritual realm via altered states of consciousness. The ancestral kangaroo engraving site is similar to the way a piezoelectric circuit works. A piezoelectric circuit converts mechanical energy into electrical energy using the piezoelectric effect. The piezoelectric effect is the generation of energy when mechanical pressure like stomping is applied to a material, and this combined with the generated sound energy was the teaching of how sound creates altered states of consciousness. Because a powerful modality is harnessing the vibrational frequencies of sound to induce altered states of consciousness. A symphony of vibrations fills the ancestral kangaroo and snake engraving site space, resonating with the cells of the ancestor's body. Their brainwaves begin to synchronize with the frequency of the sound, leading to shifts in consciousness and perception. This is about brainwave entrainment and consciousness management. Then while in this state, or helping to get into this state, or trying to progress further to higher states, the images were used as a consciousness-inducing tool to train the brain. So the brain is hardwired to recognize associated patterns by focusing on the images while in an altered state. It would help them induce and start the journey further into altered states of consciousness states. Plus, by activating the sight system would also help or induce further progress into the spiritual realm. No, this is not a place for stories. This is a vision and tool to help others share and trigger similar visions when at this site. This was not to tell them that there was kangaroos in this area. They were hopping around everywhere. I don't think they had to be told where they were. This idea of the site is still caught in the 1900s or even 1800s. No, this is a place that the ancestors used for the scientific study of sound waves and consciousness. They used the Allambie Heights ancestral engraving site to explain their experiences, and then that experience was used for future generations for a type of visual brain entrainment for others, to learn how to navigate the stages and depths of the spiritual realm. We are honouring the stories, practices and the sites of those who came before us, and this is the energetic science of the ancestors, and it cannot be explained with a materialistic understanding of things. Whether in stories, rock art, carving grounds, if they are using animals, implements or ornaments, it is symbolically referencing energy to describe their energetic science and consciousness code, sound, frequency and synchronicity.